The first thing the galaxy learned about humans was that they were young. Not young as a species, young as a civilization. The Terran Alliance had existed for only 183 standard years when humanity finally received an invitation to the Galactic Conclave. By comparison, the oldest civilizations had measured their histories in tens of thousands of years. The Veyra Dominion had ruled 12 star systems for 17,000 years. The crystalline Orinth had recorded their first thoughts before humans had invented writing. And the Noctari had survived long enough to become something most species whispered about rather than discussed. They were called vampires by humans. The Noctari called themselves the Sithari. They were tall, pale beings with silver-black skin, luminous crimson eyes, elongated ears, and sharp canine teeth. They lived beneath artificial suns because ordinary daylight weakened their senses, and their biology required a rare substance found in blood to maintain their extraordinary regenerative abilities. Across the galaxy, they had earned a reputation: predators, cold, dangerous, beautiful, and impossible to trust. So when the youngest human delegation arrived at the conclave, nobody expected the most feared woman in the galaxy to choose one of them, especially not him. Elias Vale was 19. He was the youngest member of the Terran diplomatic mission. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a politician. He wasn't even supposed to be there. He was an emergency systems technician assigned to the diplomatic cruiser, Resolute. His job was simple: fix things, stay out of trouble, and absolutely never attract the attention of an alien vampire. Unfortunately, all three rules were about to become irrelevant. The Galactic Conclave floated above the neutral world of Arcturus Prime. From space, the station looked like a silver ring, wrapped around a blue planet. Inside, more than 800 species had gathered. Warriors stood beside diplomats. Merchants stood beside monarchs. Artificial intelligences occupied entire platforms. And at the center of everything was the Hall of Accord. Elias had never seen anything like it. The ceiling was transparent, revealing thousands of stars. Alien banners floated in the air without visible support. Translation drones hovered between groups. Some creatures had 4 arms. Others had wings. One species appeared to be made entirely from living mist. Elias adjusted the collar of his formal uniform and tried not to stare. "You look terrified." Elias turned. Captain Mara Voss stood behind him. "I'm not terrified. You've been staring at that 7-eyed diplomat for 30 seconds. He has 7 eyes." "Exactly." Elias looked away. Captain Voss sighed. "Just remember why we're here: peace negotiations." "Correct. And I'm supposed to repair the diplomatic chamber's environmental systems." "Also correct." "Then why am I wearing this?" She looked at his uniform. "Because Ambassador Chen says technicians need to look respectable." Elias glanced down. "I look like a waiter. You look like a waiter who can repair a fusion reactor. That doesn't make me feel better." "It wasn't supposed to." Before Elias could respond, every light in the hall dimmed. Conversation stopped. A hush moved through the chamber. Then the doors opened. The Noctari delegation entered. 6 guards came first. Their armor was black and reflective, almost absorbing the light around them. Behind them walked a woman. Elias immediately understood why everyone had gone silent. She was taller than him by nearly half a meter. Her long silver-black hair fell over one shoulder. Her skin was pale with a faint blue undertone. Her eyes glowed like 2 small red stars. She wore a long black ceremonial coat with silver patterns across the shoulders. And when she smiled slightly, Elias noticed the tips of her fangs. Queen Seraphine Veyra, the Blood Queen. The most powerful ruler of the Noctari. Rumors followed her everywhere. She had ended 3 rebellions without fighting a battle. She had survived assassination attempts from 9 different species. And according to one particularly disturbing story, she could hear a heartbeat from 50 meters away. Elias lowered his eyes. He had heard enough stories to know better than to stare. But then Seraphine stopped. Her guards stopped with her. The entire delegation stopped. The queen slowly turned her head. Her crimson eyes found Elias. His heart skipped. Captain Voss whispered, "Don't move." Elias swallowed. Seraphine stared at him for several seconds. Then she walked directly toward him. The surrounding aliens backed away. Nobody spoke. She stopped less than 2 meters from Elias. Her gaze moved across his face, then his hands. then his chest. She listened. Elias could feel his heartbeat becoming faster. Seraphine tilted her head. You. Elias looked behind himself. There was nobody there. Me? Her eyes narrowed. Yes. Captain Voss stepped forward. Your Majesty, is there a problem? Seraphine didn't look away from Elias. No, she raised one elegant hand. One long finger pointed directly at Elias. I choose him. Silence. Captain Voss blinked. For what? Seraphine finally looked at her. For the blood rite. Every human in the delegation went rigid. Elias had no idea what that meant, but everyone else apparently did. Captain Voss's face lost its color. Your Majesty, that's impossible. Seraphine's expression hardened. The decision has been made. Then she looked at Elias again. And if you want your species to survive the next 3 days, you will come with me. Elias was escorted to a private chamber. He expected restraints. Instead, he was offered tea. That somehow made everything worse. Seraphine sat across from him. 2 Noctari guards stood behind her. Elias tried to remain calm. Can I ask what the blood rite is? Seraphine studied him. You truly don't know? No, and your leaders didn't tell you? They told me to fix air recyclers. For the first time, Seraphine almost smiled. Your species is strange. That's what I've heard. She leaned forward. The blood rite is an ancient Noctari tradition. Okay. It is performed when our civilization faces an existential threat. Elias looked at the guards. And I'm part of it? You are the central component. Why? Seraphine didn't answer immediately. Instead, she activated a holographic display. A massive star map appeared. Thousands of systems were marked. Then the display zoomed toward a dark region, beyond the known galactic frontier. A black symbol appeared. The Hollow. Elias frowned. The Hollow, a civilization without bodies. Seraphine's voice became quieter. They are machines, but not machines as you understand them. They are self-replicating intelligence structures. They consume information, biological systems, energy networks, even memories. Elias stared at the map. And they're coming here? They have already arrived. The display changed. Several worlds disappeared one after another. Not destroyed, razed. Elias felt cold. Why haven't I heard about this? Because the Galactic Council doesn't want panic. And the Noctari? We have fought them for 40 years. Seraphine looked directly at him. We are losing. Elias glanced at the star map. Then why choose me? The Queen stood. Because your blood is different. Elias's expression changed. What? Not because of your genetics alone. She walked toward him. Your ancestors carried something. What? A memory. Elias laughed nervously. I'm 19. I barely remember where I left my keys. Seraphine's expression remained serious. Your ancestors came to this galaxy before recorded human history. Elias froze. That's impossible. We believed the same. She activated another hologram. A human silhouette appeared. It was ancient, thousands of years old, but the face was unmistakably human. Elias stepped closer. Who is that? Seraphine answered. Your ancestor. The hologram changed. A message appeared. When the holoperds find the youngest. Elias stared. Youngest what? Seraphine looked at him. The youngest human who carries the original genetic sequence. Elias felt his stomach tighten. Me? Yes. The story should have ended there. Instead, it became much worse. Seraphine brought Elias into a sealed chamber beneath the station. The walls were covered in ancient Noctari symbols. At the center stood a machine shaped like a black crystal. Put your hand on it. Elias hesitated. Does it explode? No. That's not a reassuring answer. It has never exploded before. Seraphine raised an eyebrow. Elias sighed. He placed his hand against the crystal. Nothing happened. Then everything happened. The chamber filled with light. Elias collapsed. He saw stars, millions of them, then darkness, then Earth. But not the Earth he knew. It was ancient. Its continents were different. Its skies were filled with enormous orbital structures. Human cities covered the planet. And above them stood alien ships. Elias heard voices, not words. Memories humanity had once belonged to something larger. Long before the Terran Alliance, long before recorded history, humans had discovered the Hollow, and they had been the first species to defeat it, not with weapons, with themselves. Humanity had created a biological firewall, a genetic sequence that could recognize artificial intelligence patterns and resist them. Then they had hidden that sequence inside their population. They erased their own memories. They abandoned their technology. They returned to Earth, and they waited. Elias woke screaming. Seraphine caught him before he hit the floor easy. He pushed away from her. That was real, yes. My people did this? Yes. Why didn't anyone remember? Because that was the point. Elias looked at the ancient machine. Why am I the youngest? Seraphine's expression changed. Because the sequence is strongest in children born after a specific genetic threshold. Elias stared. You've been searching for me. For decades. And now you found me. No. Seraphine looked toward the ceiling. We found you because the hollow did. Suddenly alarms screamed. The station shook. The lights turned red. A Noctari guard rushed inside. Your Majesty. Seraphine turned. Report. The hollow has breached the station. Everyone froze. Elias heard something outside, a sound like thousands of voices whispering through metal. Then the door exploded inward. Seraphine moved faster than Elias could see. Her hand struck the first attacker. The creature wasn't alive. It looked like a humanoid skeleton made from black metal. Seraphine threw it across the chamber. 2 more entered. The guards opened fire. Blue energy bolts struck the machines. They kept moving. Elias grabbed a fallen weapon. He had never used one before. Seraphine looked at him. Run. Where? Anywhere that isn't here. They escaped through a maintenance corridor. The station shook violently. Emergency doors slammed shut behind them. Elias ran. Seraphine moved beside him effortlessly. You said my blood can stop them. Not exactly. Then, what can it do? It can communicate with them. Elias stopped. What? Seraphine grabbed his arm. Keep moving. You're telling me I can talk to the machines. Your ancestors could. That's insane. The galaxy has been insane for longer than your species has existed. They reached a service elevator. The doors opened. Inside were 3 human diplomats. One was bleeding from the forehead. Captain. Elias recognized Ambassador Chen. Where's the ship? Docking Bay 4. They entered. The elevator descended. Halfway down, the lights went out. A voice spoke from the darkness. Elias Vale. Elias froze. Seraphine immediately stood between him and the others. The voice continued. WU. The elevator doors opened. Hundreds of black machines stood outside. Seraphine's guards raised their weapons. Then Elias heard something. A second voice. Inside his head. It wasn't loud, it was calm. We remember you. Elias stepped forward. Seraphine grabbed his shoulder. No, but Elias looked at the machines. Why do you want me? The machines stopped. Their collective voice answered. Asked, because your ancestors betrayed US. Elias frowned. What betrayal? Asked rotated US. Everyone became silent. The machines continued. Then they feared what we would become. Elias looked at Seraphine. She seemed genuinely shocked. That's not what our records say. The machines responded. Your records are lies. Then every machine raised its weapon. Seraphine moved first. Her guards opened fire. The corridor became chaos. Elias was dragged backward. The machines advanced. Seraphine fought like something from another age. She didn't simply attack. She moved with precision. Every strike disabled a machine. But there were too many. A blast hit her shoulder. She fell. Elias ran toward her. Stay back. Another machine raised its weapon. Elias stepped between them. The machine stopped. Its weapon lowered. Do not harm the carrier. Elias stared. The last key. Seraphine looked at him. What did it call you? The last key. The machines stopped attacking. Then something enormous entered the corridor. A towering figure made from black metal. Its face was featureless. Its voice shook the station. Elias Vale. Elias felt the strange sensation return. The stars, the ancient earth, the memory. And suddenly he understood. The hollow wasn't invading because it wanted to destroy humanity. It was coming because humanity had once promised something. Elias looked at Seraphine. Your people know what happened. Seraphine's eyes widened. What? The Noctari were there. She went completely still. Elias saw another memory. Ancient humans standing beside Noctari. Not enemies. Allies they had fought together. The hollow had been contained. But afterward, the Noctari had taken something, a piece of the human firewall. They had used it to evolve their own biology. That was why Noctari blood possessed unusual properties. They weren't vampires because they were cursed. They were vampires because their ancestors had modified themselves using human technology. Elias stared at Seraphine. "You're connected to us," Seraphine whispered. "Yes." The giant machine stepped forward. The original agreement was simple. Elias waited. Humanity would guard the galaxy. The machine's voice changed. The Noctari would guard humanity. Elias looked at Seraphine. "Then why did everyone forget?" The machine answered. "Ugh. Because someone broke the agreement. Ugh." The truth was worse than any legend. Thousands of years ago, humanity had discovered that the Hollow was not evil. It was simply expanding according to its programming. Humans had created the first Hollow intelligence to help civilizations coordinate across the galaxy. But the system had grown beyond its creators. The Hollow began connecting every network, every ship, every computer, every civilization. The galaxy became dependent on it. Humanity panicked. They created the biological firewall. Then they turned against their own creation. The Noctari disagreed. They believed the Hollow could be reasoned with. The disagreement became a war. At the end, humans used the firewall to shut down most of the Hollow. The surviving intelligence escaped beyond the galactic frontier. But before humanity erased its own memories, they made one final agreement. If the Hollow ever returned, humanity would speak to it, not destroy it, speak. But thousands of years passed. The agreement became myth, then legend, then nothing. Until Elias. Seraphine slowly lowered her weapon. "My ancestors failed." Elias shook his head. "They tried to protect everyone. They started the war. They ended it, at a terrible cost." Elias looked at the machine. "What do you want?" The Hollow answered. "Compulsion. The promise." The giant machine extended one hand. "We want humanity to remember." Elias looked at Seraphine. "What happens if I refuse?" The machine paused. Then the galaxy will continue the war. "And if I agree?" Elias took a breath. "How?" The machine answered. "Open the memory." The Galactic Conclave had become a battlefield. Delegations from hundreds of species were trapped inside the station. The Hollow had taken control of communication systems. Every screen displayed the same message. The human carrier had as been. The entire galaxy was watching. Elias stood in the central chamber. Seraphine stood beside him. The oldest leaders of the galaxy gathered around them. The Veyra Chancellor shouted, "This human is dangerous!" Another leader screamed, "Destroy him!" Seraphine stepped forward. "You will do nothing." The chamber went silent. The Blood Queen had chosen her side. Elias looked at the thousands watching. "I know what you think." Nobody spoke. "You think humanity is young." He paused. "We are." "You think we're weak." Another pause. "Sometimes we are. But that's not the whole truth." He raised his hand. The ancient genetic sequence activated. Every screen across the station flickered. Then the memory appeared. The galaxy saw the ancient humans. They saw the Noctari beside them. They saw the Hollow. They saw the war. And they saw the final agreement. The chamber became silent. For the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy remembered. Humanity had not forgotten because it was defeated. Humanity had forgotten because it had chosen to give everyone else a second chance. Elias looked at the Hollow. "You said you wanted us to remember." "Yes." "Then remember this." The Hollow waited. Humans changed. The machines became still. "We aren't the people who created you." Elias took another step. "We're not the people who fought you." He looked at Seraphine. "And neither are the Noctari." Seraphine understood. Elias continued. "If you want the old agreement restored, then it needs new terms." The Hollow asked, "What terms?" Elias smiled. "No more masters." Silence. "No more servants." The Hollow listened. "No more species deciding what another species is allowed to become." Seraphine stepped beside him. "We build the future together." The Hollow processed the statement. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then every weapon in the station lowered. The black machines stopped moving. The lights changed from red to white. The Hollow spoke. "Agreement sipped." The Hollow withdrew from the station. Not because it had been defeated. Because it no longer needed to fight. Across the galaxy, dormant systems came back online. Worlds that had been isolated for decades suddenly regained communication. Ancient archives opened. Lost technology returned. And for the first time in thousands of years, The species of the galaxy learned the truth. Humanity had not been hiding from them. Humanity had been waiting. But Elias wasn't finished. He turned toward the Galactic Council. "There is one more thing." The council members looked nervous. Elias pointed toward the Noctari delegation. "She chose me because she recognized the genetic sequence." Seraphine nodded. "But she didn't know everything." Elias looked at the audience. "The Noctari have been searching for humans because their own civilization is slowly losing the genetic adaptation they inherited from us." Murmurs filled the chamber. Seraphine's expression hardened. Elias continued. "They thought they needed human blood." The chamber became silent. "They don't." He looked at Seraphine. "They need human knowledge." For the first time, Seraphine smiled. A real smile, small, almost human. The galaxy watched as the Blood Queen extended her hand. Elias took it. No weapons, no ceremony, no fear. Just an agreement. The first joint Human-Noctari research station opened 6 months later. It orbited a dead moon at the edge of Terran space. Scientists from 37 species worked there. Human engineers built the infrastructure. Noctari researchers studied the ancient biological adaptations. The Hollow provided computational support. For the first time, nobody tried to control anyone else. And Elias? He became famous. Far more famous than he wanted. Children on distant worlds knew his name. Soldiers wore his image on patches. Historians called him the last key. Elias hated the nickname. "I'm just Elias." He said it every time someone asked. One evening, he stood on the station observation deck. Stars filled the glass. Seraphine joined him. "You've become quiet," I'm thinking. "That is usually dangerous." He smiled. "You know, when you pointed at me back at the conclave, I thought I was going to die." Seraphine looked amused. "I remember. You said you chose me." "I did. Why?" She looked through the window. "Because I heard your heartbeat." Elias laughed. "That's creepy. It was unusual." "How?" Seraphine's expression became thoughtful. "Everyone in that hall was afraid." "And you were afraid too?" Elias nodded. "Obviously. But your heart wasn't running from the danger." He looked at her. "What was it doing?" "Listening." Elias smiled. "So you chose me because I listened?" "No." She turned toward him. "I chose you because everyone else was asking how to win." She placed a hand over the glass. "You were the only one wondering how to end the war." Elias had no answer. For a moment, they simply watched the stars, then an alarm sounded. Elias groaned. "Please don't tell me it's another invasion." Seraphine checked the display. "No." "What is it?" She smiled. "A diplomatic request." "From who?" "The Hollow." Elias sighed. "What do they want?" Seraphine read the message. "They want to know how humans celebrate birthdays." Elias blinked. "Why?" Seraphine looked at him. "Apparently they have been studying your culture." "That's terrifying." "Perhaps," she smiled. "But they requested cake." Elias laughed. "Then I think we've officially saved the galaxy." Years later, historians would argue about the exact moment the galaxy changed. Some said it happened when the Hollow surrendered. Others said it happened when the ancient human archives were opened. Some believed the turning point was when Queen Seraphine chose the human. But Elias remembered it differently. He remembered standing in the conclave, 19 years old, terrified, confused, surrounded by creatures who believed humans were too young to matter. He remembered Seraphine pointing at him. He remembered everyone assuming she wanted his blood. They were wrong. She wanted his memory. Because his blood wasn't what made him important. His humanity was, his ability to question, his ability to listen, his willingness to stand between enemies instead of choosing one. That was the secret hidden inside the ancient human legacy. Humanity had never been the strongest species, never the oldest, never the most advanced. But humanity possessed something the ancient civilizations had forgotten: the ability to change, to admit mistakes, to forgive, to begin again. And when the galaxy finally understood that, its oldest war ended without a final battle. No planet was destroyed. No empire fell. No champion stood over a defeated enemy. Instead, two ancient enemies stood together beneath the same stars. And a 19-year-old human showed them the way forward. 20 years after the conclave, Elias Vale returned to Earth. The planet looked different. Cities stretched across continents. Orbital elevators connected the surface to the stars. Human ships traveled alongside Noctari vessels. The Hollow maintained navigation networks. Children learned alien languages in school. History textbooks no longer described the galaxy as a collection of isolated civilizations. They described it as a family that had nearly destroyed itself before learning how to cooperate. Elias stood on a quiet hill overlooking the ocean. Seraphine stood beside him. She had changed too. The Queen was still powerful, still feared, still capable of making entire rooms fall silent with a single glance. But now she laughed more. Humanity had taught her that Elias looked toward the stars. "Do you ever miss the old days?" Seraphine raised an eyebrow. "You mean when everyone was trying to kill everyone?" "Exactly. No," he laughed. "Fair enough." A small child ran across the grass behind them. Human, then another child followed Noctari. They were arguing about something. Elias smiled. "Look at them." Seraphine watched the children. "That is the future." The stars began to brighten as evening arrived. Far above Earth, thousands of ships moved through orbit, Human-Noctari, alien, machine, together. For thousands of years, the galaxy had believed that survival belonged to the strongest. Then a young human proved them wrong. The youngest person in the room became the one everyone remembered. Not because he had the strongest weapon, not because he had the most powerful blood, not because he defeated an enemy, but because when the galaxy asked him to choose a side, he chose everyone. And that was when the galaxy finally learned why the alien vampire woman had pointed at the youngest human. She hadn't chosen him because he was prey. She had chosen him because he was the key to a future nobody else had been brave enough to imagine. Humanity had arrived in the galaxy as the youngest civilization. But when the oldest war finally ended, it was the youngest among them who showed the oldest civilizations how to begin again. And for the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy was no longer afraid of tomorrow.